because yesterday was Tisha B'Av. So on Shabbos, we finished on the top of Lama Beis Amid Aleph. Really, the daf for yesterday was Lama Beis, so we did half on Shabbos. And now we're going to start on the top of 32a, but really the Daf Yomi for today is Kesubos Lamed Gimel. So the Gemara is in the middle of discussing a contradiction between the Mishnah in Makos and our Mishnah here in Kesubos. And our Mishnah, it says that if a person has relations, assaults his sister, or he assaults a mamzeres, that he has to pay her the monetary fine. Whereas the Mishnah in Makos says you get lashes. So we've seen the answer of Ula to resolve this contradiction, that Ula says it's not a difficulty, that in our Mishnah here, we're talking about a case where she's open to the fine because she's a Nara. She's a Nara, and so therefore she gets the fine. She's in this in-between stage, whereas in the case of Malkos, the reason why she gets lashes and not the fine is because she was an adult. She's a Bulgaris. So now on the top of 32b, the Gemara says, let's see the answer of Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan, 5 lines from the top, says, Afilu tema achoso na'ara. No, you could say also in the case in Ma'akos that it was a Na'ara. So why does she get lashes there and not monetary penalty? Kancha hasrubo, kancha hasrubo. In the case in Mesachos Ma'akos, in that Mishnah, we're talking about a case where he had received lashes, and so therefore, since he had received a warning that he was going to get lashes, for that reason they get lashes in Malkos. But in the case in Kesubos, he didn't get a warning first, and so therefore he pays the fine. But if he would have gotten the warning, he would have gotten lashes and not the fine. So the Gemara says, okay, we see from here. Alma kasava Rabbi Yochanan kol hecha deika mamon u'malkos v'asr bei milka lakim emono l'mashalim. So from the answer, we see from here that Rabbi Yochanan is of the position that wherever you're able to get either a punishment of lashes or a monetary fine, that if you get the lashes, you would get lashes. That if you get the warning, you would get lashes and not the monetary fine. So Gemara says, Minale Rabbi Yochanan. Where does Rabbi Yochanan know this decision and this ruling that if you are able to get lashes or money, that the more severe one is lashes, and that's what you get. That's why you have the lashes penalty rather than the punitive damages. So the Gemara says, Hamakra, verse 8. The verse states, Kidei Rishato. It says he will punish a person according to his wickedness. It says, if Ayam bin Akos Rasha, Vipila Shofet Vikau Afanav Kidei Rishato B'Mispar, you punish him according to his wickedness. Mishum Risha Achas Atamachayvo, you punish him for one wickedness. Via Tamachayvo Mishum Shtei Rishayos, but you don't punish him for 2 wickednesses. So therefore, and right next to that verse, it says, Arbaim Yakenu, you get 40 lashes. So we see from here that where you're open to a punishment of either monetary penalty or lashes, according to Rabbi Yochanan, you get the lashes and not the monetary penalty. Gemara says, but what about somebody who wounds their friend? Where there you could either get a punishment for wounding him, or you can get lashes for wounding him, or you can make the monetary penalty. We say Memona Mishalim Milkoloki. There we say you have to pay the fine and you don't get lashes. And if you say, well, that case also is because he wasn't warned. But if he would have been warned first, we would have indeed said that he would get the lashes and not pay the monetary penalty. No, we can't say that because I'm Rabbi Yochanan. Let's say let's say you wounded somebody in such a manner that it was such an insignificant wound that you don't actually owe him any money. It was less than a penny's worth of a wound. Nevertheless, you get lashes, loka. Now you would still get lashes. And what's that scenario? What's the scenario? Either if he wasn't warned, by loka. Why does he get the lashes? El Pshita must be, it's obvious to Asrbe that he was warned. The time, and what's the reason why he gets the lashes? The late space Shava Pruta, only because you didn't wound him enough to make a monetary penalty. But if there would be a monetary penalty, so therefore you would pay the money and you don't get the lashes. So therefore, if that's the case, how can you say Rabbi Yochanan says that you would you would get lashes if you were warned and not pay the monetary penalty? But we see from this case that you would, generally speaking, pay the. Rabbi Yochanan says you typically speaking pay the fine rather than get the lashes. So the Gemara answers no. That the answer is the reason why when it comes to lashes you would pay the monetary penalty before you get the lashes is Kedama Rabbi Eli. But in the case of wounding somebody is different and that's the reason why when you wound your friend, you would typically speaking get the lashes before you would typically speaking pay the money before you get the lashes, because like Rabbi Allah said, B'perish ripta Torah Edom Zomim L'Teshlamim. The Rabbi Allah said by Edom Zomim, by false witnesses who are impeached because that they were in a different place at the same time, they couldn't possibly give that testimony. There, the Torah says specifically that they make a monetary penalty before they get the lashes. Halchanami, so too when it comes to wounding somebody else, but B'perish ripta Torah, so too the Torah is explicit. So too, Torah is explicit that if you wound your fellow friend, you get the monetary penalty before you get the lashes. Gemara says, where did Rabbi Allah teach us? Rabbi Allah taught it about the following, where it states, we testify about a person. We testify about a person. If witnesses come forward and say, we testify that such and such a person owes somebody 200 zuz, and then they're found to be false witnesses, then according to this opinion, which we'll see as Rabbi Meir, they get lashes and they pay the monetary penalty. Because the same, the verse that brings you to get lashes is not the verse that brings you to make the monetary penalty. The verse that brings you to get the lashes is sheker. And the verse that makes you have to pay is kasher zamam la'asos lachem. So they're two separate verses. So therefore, Rabbi Meir says you have to pay the penalty and you get the lashes. Whereas Chachamim omrim kol ha'mashalim eino lokeh. The Chachamim say that whoever makes the monetary penalty does not get the lashes. So the Gemara says, "V'nema." Why don't the Chachamim say kol ha'lokeh eino mashalim? Why don't the Chachamim say whoever gets the lashes doesn't make the monetary penalty? Why do they say whoever makes the monetary penalty does not get the lashes? So I'm Rabbi Allah, but Ferish rip the Torah, Edim Zomim L'Tashlamim. The Torah says specifically there's an extra limud, there's an extra teaching that Edim Zomim makes the monetary penalty rather than get the lashes. So the Gemara asks the question, Heichan rip the Torah, where does the Torah say that you make the monetary penalty before you get the lashes? The Gemara explains, Rabbi Allah says, since it says explicitly in the verse, just like you tried to do to his brother, you should do to him. Then why does it say in the next verse after that? Why does it say, or two verses later, it says, V'lo tachos einecha nefesh b'nefesh ayin b'ayin shem b'shem yad b'yad, that you should do to him hand to hand. So we say that it means, how do you punish this person? Davar anisan liyad liyad, that you punish the false witness with something that comes from hand to hand. Umaynihu mamon. So therefore, you punish the false witness by making him pay the monetary penalty rather than get lashes. So basically, we're saying that generally speaking, you would get lashes over the money, and that's what we say by the man who assaulted the woman. He gets lashes rather than having to pay a fine. But in the case of Eid Zomamin, and also in the case of a Chovel Chaver, one who wounds his friend, there the Torah is explicit. That gives an extra teaching that you pay the money rather than get the lashes. And so therefore we saw where the Torah was explicit by Eid Zomamin. So the Gemara says, and so too we say by somebody who wounds his friend, Since it states kasher asa ken yaselo, since it says in the verse, just like he did, so too shall you do to him. So too shall you do to him. If that's the case, ken yinasein bo lamali. Why do we need it to state in the very next verse? Shever tachashever ayin tachasayin shein tachasayin kasher yitain mum ba'adam ken yinasein bo. What is that? What do we need from that extra verse? So it's to teach us davar sheyesh bo nesina, that you're supposed to do to him something that has a giving, meaning to, because it says, can you not say lo? My Nia, what is it that you have to do to him? Mamon. So therefore, the person who wounds his friend has a monetary penalty. Rabbi Yochanan, my time Ka'ua. So the Gemara says, well, why does Rabbi Yochanan not follow the approach of Ua? Again, what did Ua say? Ua said that the way we resolve the contradiction between the two Mishnayot is to say that the Mishnah in Makos was referring to the Mishnah Makos was referring to an adult. And therefore, the man doesn't pay the monetary penalty. The woman who was assaulted was an adult, so therefore he only gets lashes. Whereas the Mishnah Kesubos is referring to a Nara, this girl between the age of 12 and 12 and a half. Whereas Rabbi Yochanan says that Mishnah Makos is where he was warned for lashes, and the Mishnah Kesubos where he wasn't warned for lashes. So Rabbi Yochanan, why does he not take the approach of Ua? Because Im Kain, if that's the case, Vitalta ervas achos chalot galeh. If you're going to say that the person pays a monetary penalty and does not get the lashes by a Nara, if that's the case, then we see from here that somebody who has relations with their sister will be exempt from malchus, and from lashes. If that's the case, you've nullified the punishment which says ervas achos chalot galeh. It says the nakedness of one's sister you should not reveal, because we know that anytime there's a kares penalty, you also get lashes, and now you're saying you don't get lashes under those circumstances for the Nara. And so too, Chovol b'chaver, on top of 33a, Chovol b'chaver, one who wounds their friend, Nami im kain bitalto lo yotzif. So the Gemara asked the question against Rabbi Yochanan, well, you're so worried about nullifying a prohibition from the Torah, and what about the case of one who wounds their friend, where you're saying they pay the money and they don't get the lashes? If that's the case, Pitalto or Yosef, it says in the verse, you're now allowed to strike your friend. And by Edim Zomim, we've also nullified the prohibition that says that you're supposed to strike the person who gives the false testimony. No, I will tell you how you can get lashes by a false witness. You're going to give him the lashes if he testified that this person was a ben grusha or ben chalutza. The false witnesses came and they testified that such and such a person was disqualified from being a kohen. So there's no monetary penalty to give to him. So you're going to give him the lashes. So there is a circumstance. Also, one who wounds his fellow friend, you can also uphold it, where you struck him down in a manner that he does not have to pay any money because it's less than a penny, and so therefore you also have to pay you get lashes in those circumstances. So there are those cases. So there are those cases, and so therefore Ua is saying. So therefore, Rabbi Yochanan is saying that those cases have. That's the reason why those cases pay the monetary penalty, because there are still cases where you get lashes. The Gemara says, well, if that's the case, well, why would you say that if you one assaults a sister that you would never get lashes? You've nullified something from the Torah, but there is a case where you get the lashes. If you assault your sister who's an adult, then you would get the lashes. There's no monetary penalty. So I'm Rabbi Yochanan. Hi. So therefore the Gemara says, okay, I have a different reason. So the Gemara says, Rabbi Yochanan says, I'll tell you why I don't adopt Ua's approach. Again, Ua said that Ua's approach was, how do we know that in the case where you would assault a girl who's a Nara, that you would pay the money and not get the lashes? How do I know that that's the case? Because he learns it out from tachas asher ina. So that's Ua's source. So Rabbi Yochanan says, but I don't like that source. The reason why I say you get lashes and you don't pay the money is because I don't approve of that source. I need that verse because you assaulted her. I need it for a different source. The Amar Abaye said, Amar Kra, that what do we do with this verse? The verse states, Abaye says, and this is how we explain this verse. Hi, tachas asherina, mikal deika boshes upagam. So it says about the fact that you have to pay the father of the girl 50 silver coins. That's only because tachas asherina. So we see from here, mikal, this implies the ika that aside from that, there is that you have to pay the girl, the father of the girl, also boshes upagam. You have to pay the humiliation, the cost of the humiliation you did to this girl's family, and also the depreciation that her value has depreciated. And so therefore that verse is needed to teach us that. And so therefore it's not left over to teach us this idea that you pay, that Ula wants to argue that in a case where you assault a Nara, you typically speaking would pay the money and not get the lashes. And how does Ula know that in the case where you assault a Nara, in addition to the 50 silver coins, there's also Boshes Upugam? Nafko emi de Rava. He learns it out from Rava. The Amar Rava, Amar Kra, that it says in the verse, that the man pays to the father of the Nara 50 silver coins. So we see from here, because it says Hashochavima, which is superfluous, it's unnecessary words. So we see from here, Hanash Shliva Chamishim. And for the benefit of lying with her, he pays the 50 silver coins. Miklal, the Ika, that aside from that, he did other damages to her. The other damages were Bosha Supagam. And so therefore, were humiliation and embarrassment. And so therefore, Ula is left with this open verse of Tachas Sharina, which he says it teaches us you pay the money and you don't get the lashes. So the Gemara earlier had brought the source for the reason that these false witnesses pay the money and they don't get lashes according to the rabbis. And it's because specifically the Torah made a point by Adam Zomamin. The Gemara now is going to go back to that approach. Rabbi Eliezer says Adam Zomamin Mona Mashalmai Milkalolak. So Rabbi Eliezer brings a different source for this. Remember what we say. What was the source that the Gemara had brought? Because it says yad b'yad to teach us that they pay the money rather than get the lashes. Rabbi Eliezer gives a different source. He says mishum delav b'nei asrayin inhu. No, the reason why they pay the money and they don't get the lashes is because you can't give them a proper warning. And so since you're not giving them a proper warning, you can't give them lashes. And since you can't give them lashes, they pay the monetary penalty because there's no physical penalty unless you are warned. So Amar Rava says, I'll prove to you that they can't get a warning because Nisri Behu Amos, when would we possibly be able to warn them? Nisri Behu Meikara, let's say we would warn them just in general. We'd say whoever wants to be a witness in the courts, you first have to come and get warned. If that's the case, Imri Ishtalian, they'll say, no, we forgot it. It's not a valid warning. Nisri Behu B'Shas Naisa. Let's say every time somebody comes to testify, we scare them and we give them the warning. If you're a false witness, you're going to get lashes. Well, then they'll say, Parshiv Masadi. They're going to separate and they're not going to testify. They're going to be afraid. They're going to say, you're looking at us. You suspect me. We don't need this. Nisri Behu Libasov. If we want to warn them after they've already testified, well, that's too late. So therefore, whatever happened, happened. So therefore, they can't possibly get a warning. And so since they can't possibly get a warning, that's the reason why they don't get lashes. And they only pay the money according to Rabbi Eliezer. So the Gemara says, Ma'askafo Abaye. Abaye says, why do you have to say that? Abaye challenge says you could warn them exactly the second after they testify, and thereby talk to the Dibur means right after they said something, the time it takes to say hello. Rashi says elsewhere, he says Shalom Aleichem Rebbe. He says so. Then they could immediately recant. But they've already testified at that point. And Maskifla Ravacha Braid Ravika, Venisrabu Meikara, or we could have warned them initially, Venirmas Bahu Ramuze, and now we just hint to them and remind them of it. So therefore, Hadaram Abaye, then Abaye actually says, Rav Milsi Damri. Abaye then changes his mind and he says, that which I said, that false witnesses need warning, and I had said that the reason is that which I said, that the false witnesses require a warning, and you could have warned them Toka de Dibor. Actually, I would say that's not the case. If you're going to say if you're going to say that these false witnesses require a warning, and if that's the case, when we didn't warn them, we wouldn't be able to execute them. Mika midi the inu bo kato below asra, the inu bo asra. How could it be the case? How could it possibly be the case that if they want to kill somebody without warning, because they're testifying about something that never happened, those people didn't. There was no warning. The inu boas, right? But necessarily to kill them, we would require a warning. Can't be. You need to do exactly like they tried to do, and they're trying to kill these people without them being first warned. So therefore, they should be killed without being first warned. And so therefore, we see that these false witnesses don't require a warning. So the Gemara says, Rav Simi Breder Rav Yirmiyah. So Rav Yirmiyah says, according to Abaye, that what's the reason that Eidim Zomin do not require a warning is because in order to fulfill the mitzvah of Kasher Zamam, like they tried to do, we do exactly to them. If that's the case, Ben Grusha, Ben Chalutza. What about a case about a false witness who testifies that somebody was a son of a divorcee and therefore he's disqualified for a Kohen? The Lomi Kasher Zamam Kamis Rabbi, that the reason why they get lashes is not Kasher Zamam, because they didn't try to give him lashes, they tried to disqualify him. So if they just tried to disqualify him. So since they can't be disqualified because they're not Kohanim, so therefore they get the lashes. So if that's the case, we buy Asra, they should require a warning. So the case of somebody testifies falsely that these people were Ben Grusha or Ben Chalutza, they should require a warning in that case because they can get lashes. So the Gemara says, no, Amakram Mishpat Echad Yelachem, Mishpat Hashavakochem. No, we want to make one law for all the Eidim Zomim that they don't get lashes. So now the Gemara says, well, let's go back to the idea we said about somebody who wounds his friend, that the reason why he has a payment and he doesn't get lashes, according to Rabbi Yochanan, is because the Torah specifically says that extra words by a chovel, that it says, what does it say specifically by a chovel? We said, Kain Yinasem Bo. Well, if that's the case, that's the case that we saw earlier, because there's Kain Yinasem Bo. The Gemara now brings a different opinion why somebody who wounds his friend does not get lashes. One who wounds his friend, what's the reason why he does not get lashes? What's the reason why he makes a penalty and does not get lashes? Is because the Mona Mashal and Milkalo Molaki. What's the reason why he makes a payment and he does not get the lashes? Is Meyacha. We learn out from the verse. Two men are fighting. And he strikes the woman and her fetus comes out. We're talking about the verse is referring to where one intended to kill his friend. Because the verse says if he will kill her, then you will pay a punishment, a soul for a soul. And so the verse is teaching us that one who intends to kill his friend and he kills somebody else, he's liable. One who intends to kill one person, he ends up killing another person, he's still liable for death. So the Gemara says, "In Hechi Dami, what's the scenario here? If he wasn't warned, my katil, why my mikta? Why would he be killed? But it's obvious the case that he was warned that if he'll kill him, he's liable to death. And we're going to say that one who's warned for death is going to be considered like he's also warned for lashes, because we say muteris davar chamor and muteris davar kal. That if you're warned for the more severe penalty, you're also warned for the more lenient penalty. And still the Torah says, v'lo anoshia nation. Still the Torah says that if you do not kill him, you're going to get the punishment. So we see from here that nevertheless, even though you were warned for lashes, you're going to do a monetary penalty. So Maska for Ravashi, so Ravashi challenges that. How do we know? How do we know this idea is based upon the principle that one who is warned for more severe thing, i.e. for death, he's also warned for lashes. Maybe that's not the case. And so maybe that's the reason why you pay a monetary penalty, because you weren't warned for lashes. And imtim tzalomer, and also, and if you want to say that you have a mimaydim misa chamura, and if you want to say that yes, indeed, if you're warned the more severe penalty, you're also warned at the same time for the more minor penalty. How do you know that death is considered a more severe penalty than lashes? Dilma Maltmar on the top of Lama Gim Lama base. It's possible lashes, people would consider lashes to be more severe than death. Dilma Malkos Chamor. Some people would rather get death than face pain. Maybe lashes are more severe. Yeah? And if only they had, if those who threw Hananya, Mishael, and Azariah into the furnace where they were ready to give up their life rather than die, but if they had said to them, we're going to give you lashes, they would have actually bowed down to the idols, because to a certain degree, lashes is worse than death. So how do we know that one who warns for more severe penalty is also warned for the lesser penalty? How do we know that lashes is considered to be lesser than death? So Amalei Rav Sima, Brei de Ravashi Ravashi, Amalei Rav Sima, Brei de Ravashi Ravashi, V'lo Shani Lacha Ben Akash Yesh Lakitzva Akash Shein Lakitzva. No, that in general, some people would say, give me death rather than pain, but this is a specific limited pain. This is the pain of lashes, and so there people would say, I'll take the limited pain rather than death. So Masko for Rav Yaakov Minar Pekod. So he says another question on Rav Shisha. Says, yeah, it makes sense when it says that you give a soul for a soul, that one who kills a woman will be killed, because they say that a person who intends to kill one person and kills person B instead, he's liable for death. That makes sense for this idea, because that this is the source for the idea that you pay money and not lashes by somebody who wounds his friend, because there you would get death, and we don't give you lashes. Ela Rebbe de Amar, but according to Rebbe, he says, Mama, when it says a soul for a soul, it doesn't refer to death. It refers to a monetary penalty. Well, if that's the case, and so therefore, if that's the case, if somebody intends to kill one person and he ends up killing another person, he has to pay money to the other person. And so therefore, we're talking about a case where you weren't warned for lashes. So what's our source that if you wound somebody, you're going to get the monetary penalty rather than lashes? What's the source for the idea? What's the source for the idea that somebody wounds his friend, pays a monetary penalty and not lashes? Because we learned out from the verse in Exodus chapter 21, verse 19. If two men are fighting and one strikes his friend with a stone or a fist, and he does not die, if he gets up and walks, he has his initial strength, the one who struck him down is going to be absolved from death. And would you have ever thought one person will be walking around in the marketplace and the other person will be killed? That doesn't make sense. That what we do is we hold the person, we hold the assailant in the prison to see what happens. And if he dies, then we kill the murderer. And if the person doesn't die, then he has to pay the lost wages. And what's the scenario? If he didn't warn him first, then why would he be killed? He obviously was warned. So it's obvious to Asrbe that he was warned. And we see from here, and we see from here that if you're warned for the more severe penalty, you're also warned for the lesser penalty. And still the Torah says, Shifto yitem rapo yirapeh. We don't give him lashes, but we make him pay the lost wages, and he has to pay the healing. So this is proof that in the case where you wound somebody, you pay the money rather than getting the lashes. So the Gemara says, Maske for Rav Ashi. Rav Ashi challenges this. How do you know that scenario is that even though you're warned for the more severe penalty, you're also automatically warned for the lashes? Dilma, maybe what we're talking about here is maybe we're talking about here that's not the case. That really you weren't warned for lashes, and that's why we give you the monetary penalty. And if you want to say yes, if you're warned for the lashes, you're also warned for the monetary penalty. Again, the same idea. Dilma malchus chamor. Maybe lashes are more severe than money. Indeed, if they had been warned, they would have, if they had been warned about, if they were warned for lashes, they would have worshipped idolatry rather than allow themselves to be thrown into the fiery furnace. So they would have worshipped idolatry rather than got the lashes. So therefore, we have a third approach. How do we know? So the Gemara says, the Gemara gives the same answer they gave before. No, pain in general is very bad, but if there's limited pain, you'll take the limited pain over the death. The Gemara says, so how do we know that? How do we know that when it says that when a person strikes his friend and it says vinika, how do we know dibamazid vinika? How do we know that he struck him intentionally? And that's when we say vinika mikatoa. Dilma, maybe it's talking about a case. Bishogeg, maybe we're talking about a case there's a person who killed accidentally. Vinika migawas, and we're saying that they didn't warn him, and that's what we're saying. Vinika makeh, that he's exempt from exile, and so therefore it's nothing to do with lashes. You wouldn't get lashes in that case because it was accidental. So the Gemara says, "Gosh, indeed, that's difficult." So up until now, the Gemara has brought the answer of Ula and of Rabbi Yochanan about the contradiction between our Mishnah and the Mishnah in Makos. And our Mishnah says that you're liable for monetary penalty and not lashes, where you assault your sister. Whereas the Mishnah in Makos says you get lashes. So Ula says that the Mishnah in Makos is talking about a Bulgaris. And Rabbi Yochanan says, no, we're talking about the Mishnah in Makos is where you were warned. So Reish Lakish says, no, our Mishnah is Hamani Meir Hi, the Amar Loko Mishalim. Our Mishnah follows the position of Rabbi Meir, who says that if you get lashes and a monetary penalty at one moment, you have to do both. You get the lashes and you make the payment. So our Mishnah says you pay the payment. It means even though you're liable for the lashes. And so that's what our Mishnah is saying. You, Rabbi Meir, I feel bito nami. If that's the case, Rabbi Meir should say even if you had relations with one's daughter, where you're liable for death from the court, he should also pay the penalty. Why does it say in the Mishnah on Daf 30 base that somebody who has relations with his daughter is exempt from the penalty? So do you want to say Rabbi Meir says maybe lashes and payment, he says, but death and penalty he does not say? We don't say that. Below, the Gemara says, are you going to say that? But Tanya, but didn't we learn the Brisa? Gana v'tavach b'Shabbos. Let's say you stole an ox and you slaughtered it on Shabbos. Gana v'tavach avodas k'chavan. Let's say you slaughtered an ox. You stole an ox. You slaughtered for idolatry. Gana v'shor niskol v'tavach. You slaughtered an ox that was supposed to be stoned and you slaughtered it. Misham tashlumi arba v'chamisha divrei mer chaman potrin. In all these cases, Rabbi Meir says you pay 4 or 5 times where the Chachamim exempt. So we see explicitly that Rabbi Meir is at the position that when you have a death penalty and a payment, that the death penalty does not exempt you from the payment. So Gemara says, "Idmar, well, no, I'm Rabbi Yochanan, I'm Rabbi Yaakov, I'm Rabbi Yochanan, I'm Rabbi Yirmiyah, I'm Rabbi Shimon Lakish, Rabbi Yavin, Rabbi Lav, Chol Chavurta, Mishmei Rabbi Yochanan." That was B'Tobechai Deyachar. He didn't slaughter it. Somebody else slaughtered the animal. And so therefore that's the reason why he doesn't pay the penalty. That's why somebody else pays the penalty, and the one who dies does not pay the penalty. So does one person slaughter and the other person be liable? It can't be. So Amar Rava, you're right. Even though generally speaking, we say that there's no agency for sin, Amar Rachmano tevachol macharam. In this case, we say that even though it happens through another party, the slaughter happens through another party, you're still going to be liable for the payment. So the Gemara says, so this is an exception to the rule of Yesh Shliach Advar there, that there is agency for sin, because we learned the Be'er Rabbi Shmuel Tana Larabos es Shliach, and indeed this is a case to include an agent. So the Gemara says, we have to stop here. So we'll pick it up. We'll review this at 8:00, and God willing, we'll pick it up tonight at this place. All right, if anybody has any questions, I know we went a little quickly.